Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the week starting on Monday, March the 18th, 2024. And this is the week that runs through until Sunday, March the 24th, 2024. And, the big event this week, which I'm going to be putting a lot of emphasis on, is the Spring Equinox. At least it's a Spring Equinox from a perspective of the Northern Hemisphere. I suppose if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the beginning of autumn. And the Spring Equinox takes place at a precise time. It is the moment that the Sun moves into Aries, and I will be discussing that in this video. But I want to, in this introduction, just go over the structure of this video, what I'm going to be looking at. I will be starting off by doing a blow-by-blow account of the main events astrologically this week, from Monday through to Sunday. And having done that, I'm going to look at the Spring Equinox in detail. I'll be looking at it from a perspective of a couple of cities, and I'll be doing some astrocartography. Then, at the end of the video, I will consider the I Ching. I will do an I Ching reading for this week, asking a question, what is this week going to be like? For those watching the I Ching segment of this video, and that is a reminder that the I Ching reading is voluntary. The I Ching reading in this video is only focused on those watching the I Ching segment. So that means when you come to the I Ching segment, and there'll be plenty of warning, and you don't want your I Ching to be read, you don't have to watch it. You can stop watching a video there and then, because my forecast only applies to those watching me do my reading. If you don't watch, if you stop the video early, then it doesn't apply to you. So the first thing I want to do is look at the week from an astrological perspective. And here is the chart for the moment the week starts. For convenience's sake, I've made it New York. So New York, midnight on Monday. And we can see, if we look at this chart, that the Sun is moving through the last degrees of Pisces, getting ready to move into Aries. And the first event of the week is probably a quintile aspect between Venus and Uranus. So in other words, Venus and Uranus will be 72 degrees apart. With Venus making this quintile to Uranus, we may see people trying to show off. It's all about a particular style. Now, Venus can be the planet of art and beauty, and so people may try to show off by doing something dramatic or that really stands out. People are going to really make a special effort to stand out, perhaps with the clothes they wear, or by their overall manner. But it's going to be a little bit forced. This is a quintile. Quintiles are very much a man-made aspect. But still, some people are really going to want to show that they're different. Maybe in ways that aren't particularly helpful. Spending money inappropriately, that's a possibility. Buying things which make you seem different. Really, you either are different, you either are an individual or you're not. You can't really do anything about it. But some people are going to think that they can do something about it. Moving on to Tuesday, and Mars is making a semi-sextile to Neptune. That means that Mars and Neptune are one sign apart. Mars in Aquarius, Neptune in Pisces. Mars in Aquarius tries very hard to be objective, tries not to be emotional, but it's semi-sextile Neptune. You try very hard to be objective and to be rational, yet all the while things are getting complicated. There are things going on you don't even see. The tide is lapping at your feet and it's getting higher. And so our attempts to be very ideas focused in our actions may not come to much, because we just can't help ourselves. We just find ourselves being not objective enough. The emotional dimension just can't be ignored. And so we have to be very careful how we assert ourselves, especially on Tuesday. Now, while all this is going on, Monday and Tuesday, the Sun is moving onto this fixed star known as Skeet. Skeet is a star connected with shipwrecks and disasters. And around this time, every year, March 18th, 19th, the sun is on Skeet. And it can be just a time where things go wrong, where things just don't work out, where our attempts to apply ourselves just don't happen. And so we do have to be very aware and be very careful what we do. Then on Wednesday, or actually Tuesday, it depends on your time zone, the Sun moves into Aries. Big change. This is by definition the Spring Equinox. Spring Equinox happens the moment the Sun moves into Aries. I'll be sort of going into the technical details a bit later. So when the Sun moves into Aries, there's a big change in the energy. The Sun moves from a water sign, conjunct Skeet in Pisces, to a fire sign. The Sun actually moves into a sign where it is exalted. The Sun exalted in Aries. So all of a sudden, we become more dynamic. Other people become dynamic. We feel a need to assert ourselves. And it's that time of year. It's the beginning of spring. And so it's time to get things on the road. And we're going to be, very enthusiastic about that. But there's some danger of exaggeration. We just might take things a little bit too far. And if we start taking things too far, we just might not know when to stop. So, just think, on Wednesday with the equinox, what could go wrong if you put too much energy into something? Maybe it's too much financial energy. You could end up spending money for no reason. Or just in general, overexerting yourself with negative results. So try to kind of have some control. I mean, I will be going into the equinox in detail in a moment. Then on what will be on Thursday, the Sun, having moved into Aries, makes a sextile aspect with Pluto. This is really quite a fortunate aspect. It allows us to be powerful and to be assertive and to really explain to people, what we want. And I think we'll make it clear but we're not really in the mood for compromise. Now, normally it's a bit of a problem when we say we're not in the mood for compromise, but with Sun sextile Pluto, many of us can really get our way, and we can maybe steamroller the opposition, but be careful. Other people's feelings do matter. While the Sun is sextile Pluto, Venus is conjunct Saturn. And so Venus conjunct Saturn can be about people's feelings being ignored, the human dimension being ignored. And some of us might want to, give the impression that we can cut out our feelings, that feelings are not part of it, that we can be rational. Be a bit careful there. It's possible to be too harsh. And also with Venus conjunct Saturn, some people are going to be overly materialistic. They're going to sort of put the emphasis on what things look like, rather than their actual substance. Then, as we move into the weekend, Mars changes sign. Mars moves from Aquarius to Pisces. Mars moves into a water sign. So when you've got Mars in Pisces, people are going to start asserting themselves in rather strange ways. They're not going to want to assert themselves directly. They're going to want to do it in a roundabout kind of way. There are many ways of getting your way. You don't have to be up front. You can do it in a very subtle way. You can slowly, grind down the opposition slowly as the water sort of laps around them, slowly getting your way. That's how Mars in Pisces can work. And Mars in Pisces can also be very devious. And that does make it difficult. Though, Mars actually works quite well in Pisces because, Mars, from a triplicity perspective, has a connection with the water signs. And so there's always the right way to assert ourselves. It might be a bit surprising, but I think we can certainly do it if that's what we want. But we don't want to be devious. That's probably not a good idea. And the final aspect of the week is a sextile between Venus and Jupiter. Venus is the lesser benefic, Jupiter is the greater benefic. When Venus is sextile Jupiter, things can actually work out really well. It's very fortunate. There's general enthusiasm and optimism, and that's certainly a great way to end the week. But there is no doubt in my mind that the most important event of the week is the Spring Equinox. So this is a chart of the Spring Equinox, the moment the Sun goes into Aries. This is the moment the Sun crosses the celestial equator, when the hours of day and night are equal. But from then on, in the northern hemisphere, the hours of daylight are increasing day by day, and then they keep increasing until the summer solstice around June the 21st, which is 3 months after the equinox. From a spiritual perspective, the equinox is like a gateway. At that precise time, when the Sun crosses the celestial equator, which by definition is also the time when the Sun moves from Pisces to Aries, moving above the celestial equator, moving north of the celestial equator. But that precise moment is, it's like the doors open. The gateway to the universe is open, and whatever is going on in the solar system imprints itself on the Earth, and it gives us tells us something about the nature of the next 3 months, that period from the spring equinox through to the summer solstice. And if you're into rituals and magic and even just self-affirmations, perhaps you might want to do something special at the precise moment of the equinox. And yeah, it does have a precise moment, and sometimes that precise moment is inconvenient. It might be inconvenient, for example, if you are in London, because the spring equinox, that moment, the exact moment, is at 3:06 a.m. and London time. So you might be sleeping, but it's too bad. I mean, you can ignore the spring equinox if you want, but if you want to celebrate it, become part of it, you have to be there at that precise moment. I know a lot of people like to have sort of ceremonies and rituals around the spring, and they just do something that's convenient. We do it at dawn. Why not? But dawn is no good unless the sun goes into Aries exactly at dawn, and it doesn't, at least from London perspective. So yeah, that's 3:06 London time. If you want to know what time it is, depending on where in your location, by all means ask. You can ask, and you put a comment down. Ask when it is. It's at, for example, 2:06 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. If you're in the Americas, well, actually, the equinox was the day before. So New York, Tuesday, it would be Tuesday, 11:06 p.m. That's a more reasonable hour when you don't have to be up in the middle of the night to celebrate the equinox. It's even more reasonable if you're in Los Angeles, because that would be 8:06 p.m. on the Tuesday. So what we've got here is the precise moment when the sun goes into Aries from the perspective of Westminster, England. I want to start by looking at what I believe are the most important things about this chart, without really referencing the ascendant and the midheaven, which are specific to the Westminster, England location. So here is the sun. Sun, 0 degrees Aries. The sun is exactly semi-square Jupiter. Exactly semi-square. I mean, there's only 7 minutes difference between the sun and Jupiter. They're that close, and so if the sun, as it moves into Aries, is semi-square Jupiter, there can be a sense in which the equinox is quite excessive, putting a lot of energy into something, just feeling one has to keep going until we've achieved whatever we're trying to achieve. And yes, it could be exhausting, and it could be exaggerated, and in some cases it could actually be dangerous, all that energy. And it is a very close Sun-Jupiter semi-square. And another thing happening at the moment of the equinox is that the moon is opposition Pluto. That moment of the equinox, we've got moon opposition Pluto. Though I should point out that one of the good things about this chart is that the moon is in Leo, trine sun in Aries. So there's a lot of power in this equinox chart, with the moon trine sun in fire signs. Moon in Leo, trine the sun in Aries. So there is a capacity for creating a certain amount of harmony if we're responsible. Sunshine, moon is harmonious. Some of us may be able to use the energies of the equinox to get things off the ground. Having said that, there could be resistance. After all, the moon is opposition Pluto at the moment of the equinox. That is part of the energy that's going to be brought down to Earth at that precise moment when the equinox happens. Moon opposition Pluto can be about emotional intensity. Moon is in fixed signs, and is in a fixed sign. Pluto is a fixed sign, so it's going to be quite difficult to compromise. We might feel that something is at stake. That if anyone gets too close or tries to infringe on our rights and liberties, we might explode. I mean, moon opposition Pluto is quite tense. And so, yes, I think that there is an underlying tension there in this equinox chart. We should also consider the equinox chart from the perspective of the 90-degree dial and midpoints, because I think this gives us a clearer X-ray picture of what the spring equinox is really about. So I've created the 90-degree dial, and there we can see there's the sun at 90 degrees at 0 degrees Aries. Now, when two planets are semi-square or sesquiquadrate, or 45 degrees apart or 135 degrees apart, and you use the 90-degree dial, they appear as oppositions. And so here it is. I said the sun is semi-square Jupiter. Therefore, the sun is opposition Jupiter on the 90-degree dial. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to look here at the midpoints that both the sun and Jupiter occupy. And this might give us a flavour about what the equinox is about, and indeed a flavour about what the next 3 months are going to be like. We can see the symmetry there, and we can see Mercury and Saturn are making are reflected on each other through the Sun-Jupiter axis. So there's Mercury and Saturn. Then we've also got Mars reflecting the Moon-Pluto conjunction. So there was a Moon-Pluto conjunction. Well, there will be a Moon-Pluto conjunction at the time of the equinox. And we can use the Sun-Jupiter line coming here to reflect the Moon-Pluto conjunction onto Mars. That represents, to my mind, a lot of force, a lot of power, a lot of anger, and also, of course, frustration, because the equinox is on the Mercury-Jupiter midpoint, and of course Jupiter is hitting this Mercury-Saturn pair. We've had this with this Sun on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. We've had this for a long time, and I've talked about it before with reference to certain full moons, new moons. It is this constant theme of having to say goodbye to something. Mercury is about communication. Saturn is about ending something. And so this equinox may be a further reminder that some things are leaving our life. They've done our bit, they've done their bit, but, we have to move on. So farewells are certainly possible. And also on the equinox, we've got this midpoint between Mars and Pluto. In fact, the equinox is on the Mars-Pluto midpoint and the Moon-Mars midpoint. So it's quite angry, and we could see some dramatic things going on, especially with the Sun being semi-square Jupiter. So, the world is, over the next few months, you could say that there are people, states, actors, going to be applying an immense amount of force. That's really what it's all about. So, overall, I think the equinox is quite energetic, quite powerful. There's quite a lot of frustration and anger in this equinox. And I think this is going to be a theme of the next few months. And I do think the run-up to the summer is tense. I think that was always going to be the case. Now, as far as how the equinox is going to have an impact on different places, well, I set the equinox up for different cities. This chart is the chart for London, Westminster. What stands out in this chart is the fact that there's this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which is on the IC. I think what people are doing in the UK is they're looking for a release. They're looking for freedom. This is it's quite rebellious, I would have thought, Jupiter conjunct Uranus on the IC. The people seem to be restless, and how they respond to perhaps the government trying to throw its weight around. I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to that, and the government is already in real trouble in the UK. Is there going to be election? Well, I think the experts say that probably there's not going to be an election, but there's certainly a theme of upheaval there. And we get a similar chart if we set this equinox for Paris. I mean, Paris and that's not that chart. That's the wrong one. Paris. So if we set the chart up for Paris, in Paris, Uranus is that much closer to the IC than it is in London. So maybe the people are going to be even more restless in France. I suppose Macron, you ought to get the impression that Macron is completely out of control. I did a video about him recently. He is out of control. He's talking about sending troops to Ukraine. I mean, that's really crazy, to be honest, if you think about it. Because Russia's going to treat them as, enemy combatants. Will it get to that? I don't know. But I think a lot of people in France realize that their president is pretty crazy. Certainly when it comes to foreign policy, and that may be reflected by other things going on in France. Uranus on the IC is about things happening which shake the foundations of society. It's similar to what's going on in the UK, but I think perhaps more intense. Another place to consider might be Moscow. I'm not putting up Moscow's chart for any particular reason. So this is the equinox set for Moscow. Got Pisces rising. We've got Venus-Saturn conjunction rising. You could say that Saturn rising is the power of the government. That Venus on the ascendant. Venus is exalted in Pisces. It doesn't necessarily look too bad for the Russian government with that Venus on Pisces in Pisces rising, and Saturn is, perhaps you could say, well, that is an authoritarian government being able to stamp its authority on society. Venus conjunct Saturn, but I'm not convinced we're going to see anything too dramatic in Russia, and I don't think if you wish Russia badly, as some people do, then I don't think that equinox, that spring equinox chart is particularly promising. Obviously, from a Russian perspective, then I think it's a good chart. I mean, I'm Venus in Pisces rising from perspective of Moscow. I wouldn't have expected anything too serious to be happening in Russia. Now, if we look at Ukraine by contrast, let's set the equinox for Kiev. A similar chart. We see Venus conjunct Saturn in the first house. Because, from a global perspective, Kiev and Moscow are not that far apart, but there are some differences. In Moscow, we had Pisces rising, but in Kiev, we have Aquarius rising. And this equinox, from a perspective of Kiev, has Mars exactly rising. There's Mars 2746 Aquarius, and the ascendant is 2744 Aquarius. Might be a good idea to find out exactly when Mars rises in Kiev. So Mars rises. Let's see, Mars rises at approximately 3:13, 3:14. So local time. So this is actually London time, but this is Kiev, but set for UK time, the UK time. So basically, Mars. A few minutes after the equinox, the body of Mars comes to the ascendant. So I think it's quite a difficult chart because of the position of Mars. We already know this is a country at war, and this is a country at war with Mars on the ascendant. So it's kind of more of the same, isn't it? And that's really what the spring equinox chart is saying from a perspective of Kyiv, which is, of course, the capital of Ukraine. So it's perhaps saying something about the whole country. Then we look at the equinox from a perspective of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., we see Mars angular on the IC, and we see Uranus, a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on the descendant. It's all very frenetic, isn't it? I suppose it's that much closer to the election, and I do think that overall, for a number of reasons, that the summer is going to be quite a difficult time for the United States. It's going to be a long, hot summer, and this is perhaps the start of it. And with Mars conjunct the IC and Uranus close to the descendant, okay, Jupiter is close to the descendant, but what does that mean? I mean, this is Washington, D.C. I mean, there's it may feel that there are threats to the government. The government is always thinking there are threats. I mean, they're probably not real in themselves, but I think that it's not very harmonious, I don't think, that spring equinox chart. So I've looked at it. I've looked at the equinox from a number of different locations. I just want to set up a map just to put everything in perspective. So this is the astrocartography chart for the equinox. So remember, I was saying Mars is conjunct the ascendant in Kyiv. So this is the Mars line. You can see this yellow line is all the places on Earth where Mars is conjunct the ascendant. Goes through Africa, goes through Bulgaria, and then there it is. There it hits Kyiv there. You can see it misses Moscow, and then. Remember I was saying that there's a Venus conjunct Saturn in Moscow, so there is there's that line crossing Moscow, that Venus conjunct Saturn. So you can see all these places. I mean, the Mars rising, if we take this down, we may see instability throughout the Balkans. Particularly, we may sort of Romania, perhaps Bulgaria going through, but then crossing into Libya. So that's how that line might work. Then I was talking about Washington. Mars is on the IC in Washington DC and on the East Coast. This is the Mars line is here. You see this red line, Mars on the IC, sort of going through New York. I don't know what that means. I mean, there's not the potential for there's not the same potential for death and destruction in New York as there is, for example, in Ukraine. But I think one might want to look for a bit of civil unrest, demonstrations, perhaps with Mars on the IC. So that's the equinox. I think it's quite tense, the overall equinox. I think the fact that you've got Jupiter semi-square the Sun at the time of the equinox, which is a very excessive, exaggerated aspect. And I think that is going to be the hallmark of this equinox, exaggerated behavior. But there are certain places which are going to be more tense than other places. I mean, for example, I do think that Kyiv, capital of Ukraine, is going to be tense, even by Ukraine at war standards, having that Mars rising. Likewise, New York got Mars on the IC, so that is somewhere to consider. But I think it's now time to move on and look at the I Ching. So what I did was I asked the question, what is the week starting on Monday, March the 18th, 2024 going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And that's a reminder, you do not have to watch this segment if you don't want to, then you're not part of the forecast. And I will be looking at the I Ching from 4 perspectives. I will do a general reading, then I will look at money, and then career, and then relationships. So the first hexagram I got was dispersion. Dispersion represents floods, rain, really heavy rain, just like everything gets washed out. And, that might seem quite a bad thing. Who wants to live in a rainstorm? But the way dispersion works in the I Ching is it's about clearing things out. There's this big storm. It's almost like a washing machine. Everything gets moved around, and we get moved around. And we just because we're moved around in a chaotic way doesn't mean it's bad. And with the second line moves in this hexagram, and it's saying here that yes, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of dispersion, water, flooding. We can actually take advantage of it because it moves us on. It allows us to get the support we need, and to perhaps even get the breaks we need, and that moves us into a much more comfortable situation. In fact, it moves us, if we look at the following hexagram, but it moves us to hexagram number 20, which is contemplation. So what we need to be doing here is just observing. The storm is over, we've moved to a different place, We've probably moved to a better place. Things are easier, but it's not a time for taking action. There's still too much up in the air. It's a time to be considering our next steps and to be watching. Because if we watch what other people are doing, we'll have a clearer idea about what we should be doing. Turning to money, and from a financial perspective, it's very difficult to actually work out what's going on. There's a lot of things happening financially, and we're just not sure whether it's good or bad. It's really difficult to work it out. And plans to spend money in particular ways might have to change. And we're not quite sure where to put our money. And if other people have been talking about money, they can change their mind. And it's just very difficult to know exactly what the financial situation is. And then suddenly things start to clarify, and we realize that there was actually no need to panic, that whatever the chaos, whatever the turmoil, nothing actually got lost, but we did see a lot on the way. And because we saw a lot on the way, there is a lot to think about, which takes us to hexagram number 20, which is contemplation. We can see the picture as far as our money and how much money we've got. If for any particular financial areas of weakness, we are aware of it all, and it's a time to do nothing. Just think about it. Don't give in to financial demands. If someone's claiming that you've got to buy something right now, it's unnecessary this week. You just need to think it through. I say it's unnecessary. There are some things that, of course, do have to be bought right now if they're an absolute matter of life and death. But really, it's about thinking it through. And then by the end of a week, we'll have a clearer idea about what we want to do with our money and how we can best safeguard our financial resources. Then we have career and business and work, and I don't know, I think that this week there's a lot going on, and it's difficult to know where it's all going to lead. And it's not really a time where you can make plans, because if you make plans, they're just going to get disrupted. And I suppose that may be telling us something about what's going on, astrologically. The sun, remember, is moving through the last few degrees of Pisces, conjunct Skeet, the fixed star connected with shipwrecks. And perhaps this is what dispersion is all about, when we're feeling we're on the verge of a shipwreck in terms of what's going on at work. But if we are working, but it's not a time to panic. It might feel as if the ship on which we're sailing is about to get smashed on the rocks, but it's actually okay. We're not going to get smashed on the rocks. In fact, the I Ching, one of the I Ching with this moving line talked about a boat moving in a particular direction, and then it gets moved on. There's a big wave or something like that. It just gets moved on very quickly, and this might actually be what's going on if you're working this week. If career matters are important to you, you may actually be able to benefit from other people's confusion, because if other people are confused, you may actually know what's going on if you're honest with yourself, and because you know what's going on, you suddenly become the center of attention, and you can sort it out, and everyone's going to love you for it. But having said that, it's not a time for singing your own praises. After all, dispersion does move, and it moves to hexagram 20, contemplation. So once you've seen what's happening at work, and for example, it might be that if you're running your own business, a lot of changes might have had to have been made this week, and it might have all been a bit too much. But if you're running your own business, you don't want to make any new decisions. You've seen how unpredictable things are, and you need some time to think it through. There is a lot to think through, and that's where the contemplation comes in. There's another group of people that might be interested in this hexagram from a career perspective, and that might be people who are looking for a job. So attempts to find a job this week may start off on quite a difficult note, but maybe because you haven't understood what's going on. You started looking for a job from a position of ignorance, maybe, or relative ignorance, and suddenly things were going on, and you just really weren't sure whether your application was done right. But this storm will settle, and with contemplation 20, you have the information then to I would have said to make a decent application. If you're in that situation, after all, you're moving to contemplation. And with contemplation, your knowledge may not be complete, but you are in observation mode. And once you make the observations that are summed up by contemplation, probably towards the end of a week, then perhaps next week or sort of after Easter, you'll be in a better position to take action. And finally, there is relationships. Well, it does depend to a certain extent what kind of relationship you are in. Dispersion represents relationships that are pretty fluid. I mean, we're talking about rain, a storm. People are changing very quickly. You can't really make any assumptions about any one person. So better hold off on making decisions. But because of the rather chaotic environment you're in, you might suddenly meet new people in unexpected ways. I suppose, if there's a big storm and things get washed around here, there and everywhere, so two people could find themselves in the same place almost by accident. So that might suggest some kind of accidental meeting. But if you're already involved in a relationship, that relationship just may feel that it's very up in the air as you and someone else try to negotiate all of these changes. But I don't think this is really a big problem, because a lot of the turmoil happening this week will serve to move things on. Maybe there have been certain relationships that you're in which have just been stuck. They might have been important relationships, but nonetheless they felt that they were stuck. They weren't actually going anywhere. And so what's happened is there's been a bit of a storm, and it's really helped move things on. And that has brought us to a new hexagram, which is hexagram number 20, which is contemplation. So really, in terms of any relationship you're in, it's not a time for making decisions. It's not a time for making commitments. I think as a result of the week's events, you have seen the important people in your life in a particular light. You have the facts. You've observed certain people, and by observing them, you're almost in a position to make a decision, but not quite, because the week ends from a relationship perspective, in contemplation mode, just thinking about it, observing. And if you observe for long enough, you will see the answers. And really, that's it for the week. I don't think that it's necessarily a particularly dramatic week, whether from the astrology or the I Ching. I know the I Ching did seem to be a bit dramatic with this sort of dispersion, giving the idea of a storm, but no harm is done. And with the astrology, well, the big event is the sun moving into Aries, the Aries ingress. Yes, it is dramatic in some respects because it's this big change, the beginning of spring, and the sun moving from Pisces to Aries. So yes, in a way that is dramatic. Although perhaps I suppose what makes it dramatic, if anything, is the fact that the sun is exactly semi-square Jupiter, and so that can give rise to exaggerated behaviour. But I don't think this week was anything massively to worry about. So if you enjoyed this video, I would of course be very grateful if you were to like it. If you enjoyed the video and you're not subscribed, I'd be very happy if you were to subscribe, and if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.